The Performance Marketing Podcast is sponsored by the Foxwell Founders Membership. If you want to be great at paid social, the Foxwell Founders Membership is perfect. It's a community of the best paid social marketers and agency owners. Ask any question, and hundreds of elite marketers can work with you on it. This isn't a Facebook group with fake ROAS screenshots. These people are paid a lot of money for their advice, and with the Foxwell Founders Membership, you get full access to them 24/7. So go to foxwelldigital.com and sign up today.
All right. Sweet.
All right. Hey, welcome to the Performance Marketing Podcast. I'm Eric Philippou. I'm here with Akash Joshi. Soon joining us, Andrew Soria. And we have a special guest today, Anze Markovic. What's up, Anze?
First guest.
And,
What's up, guys?
All right. So today's episode, we're going to be talking a lot about just paid social creative and performance marketing creative. And Anze, I'll give him just a quick background about how we know him. We worked at Voy Media together for a long time. Me, Akash, and Anze, and Andrew. So really, we go way back. And Anze was very special at Voy Media in that he was one of the first people, and honestly, all of paid social, at least in our silo, that was preaching how creative is the most important thing, and everything should be creative first approach. We should prioritize creative, and then the results showed. And yeah, it was very, very special. So Anze, I don't want to speak for him, but he's very focused on ad creative. So Anze, tell us a little bit about what you do now, what you're working on these days, and your history.
Yeah. So like I said, I was at Voy for a couple of years. Then I was doing my own stuff, mostly freelancing, especially on the creative side. In between, I worked for another agency. I was a creative strategist there. I built they didn't have like a creative strategy department. They had like a very good content production team and media buying team, but they didn't have like that bridge in between, that creative strategy. And I built that department there. So we were managing around 33 clients, not small ones. So it was like creative analysis, script writing, giving direction to content production team, not only like just scripts or editing part, but also like what kind of visuals we need, at least from the idea perspective, and then also from the editing perspective. Now, for the last 6 months, 7 months, I'm on my own. I always had a couple of clients on the side, and at that point, I had just too many of them. So I had to make a decision. So I went on my own, and since then, I kind of have my own small team. My wife is a videographer, so you can see a mess behind me. There's like a small studio for studio product shots. Then we have, of course, most of the stuff is lifestyle when we record in the bedroom or in living room. We hire models and Airbnbs to shoot that content. And at the same time, like in the last 2 years, actually, I built like a pool of content creators. Those guys are from US, and basically they do UGC for me. And I also give them, when I give them script instructions, my instructions are a little bit more detailed. I give them like camera angle suggestions, what kind of hooks they need to make. They always give me raw assets. Everything is like more than just 20-second video testimonial. So I can have like a lot of stuff with editing. And yeah, that's basically it for now.
Nice. I got some follow-up questions. So, and this might be the source, right? Like, what do you do to hire like influencers like abroad? Is it and with that as well, do you hire native to the country? So if you're working with a US brand, do you hire US influencers? But if you're working with someone in, UK or a different country, do you hire people native to that country with the same accent, the same tone, the same the same sort of vibe? Like, what does that look like?
I mean, I mostly work with US clients anyway. And I have a couple of Australian ones, and I still use US creators. And I mean, it's the same approach from you for UK, so it's not a big deal there. But in terms of like, yeah, Germany or French, yeah, you need to find native guys. I don't work on those markets yet, but it's coming close actually. So, but I have some connections here in Europe where I have people that advertise in Europe only, and they have those pools of creators specific per country. So that's definitely coming for me too. But yeah, regarding the English language, I think it's not that a big of deal if like US creator is advertising in UK.
How do you usually reach out? Is it through like Instagram DM, or is it like, you know, the right fit? I think below, like, do you use any of those?
Yeah, one thing is that like I have a pool of around at least 40 or 50 creators already. So because I spend a lot of time, especially last year and in the last 3 months, building that. So I have like younger demographic. I have like people over 50. So it's very good because I have very broad net of those creators. But how I found them is mostly like sometimes you can go on Facebook ads library of some good brand, you check them out and you see, okay, I like this creator. You go on their social, you go on their TikTok, and maybe in captions you notice who those guys are.
Okay.
You can reach out to them. So that's like one trick to how you can find them. It's very time consuming. So it's getting better now that I have like a big list, but I'm always building. I want to go to a number of hundreds, at least by the end of the year.
Yeah, we're seeing it like a lot of people obviously move into that, you know, creative space, making a really big push for like UGC, stuff like that. But yeah, no, that's really good insight, I think.
And also UGC is evolving too. Like it needs to be very well scripted. Like in terms of what they need to say, like not how they need to say, because you want to feel it natural, but what they say, it's very important, because like those guys, they don't know what's the most common objective to buy certain product. We know that because we are marketers, right? So it's our job to give them that direction, or what's the better alternative to, I don't know, this natural shampoo. It's chemical shampoo, right? And you educate them why this chemical shampoo is basically the same shampoo that you put on your car, and people don't know that. So if you can build a story around that, then all of a sudden it's like you can convince those who think that like a normal shampoo it's enough for them. So that education and that direction to creators is important, because those guys don't know that, most of them.
Do you give them a script that you say read this exact script, or you give them like required things you have to mention?
What I do is I actually build a story of my own, but I tell them you don't need to say in exact words. Sometimes I give them bullet points so I can see how creative they are, especially for those guys who are working with me more. Those guys know what I want already. But yeah, I want, and I also want like what they need to say in the beginning of the video, in the middle, and on the end. So the sequence is also very important, not just what they need to say.
That's pretty cool. And then do you value how many followers they have, or how easy they are to work with?
No, I don't care about followers, because that's for paid ads anyway. I don't care. But regarding how easy they are work for, that's definitely important. Like, I mean, some of my guys, when I send them script and they have the product, I get content like the next day. Like, incredible,
that's really
right?
good.
They're so quick. But 2 or 3 days is like on average, and that's still very, very good. And I mean, the hard work was actually done before I send them the script, because I already know what the video will look like. When they send me content, I just forward everything and make like a 5 to 10 minute Loom recording to my editor. And 2 days later, the creatives are done. So the hard work is basically done when you have nothing, like in my head, basically.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, and it makes sense. Like, I think people talked a few weeks ago, UGC is a bubble or something, like UGC doesn't work for them, or people, it's just iPhone videos or selfie videos shot. Like, what matters is the script itself. Like, when you get very in the weeds testing so many different script variants, you see the impact of just the first line, the hook, or like what a big variance every little detail in a script can have. So to say a blanket statement like UGC doesn't work or UGC is always good, that is something that I think a lot of people misunderstand about UGC or just advertising in general. So, or image text, images with text on them don't work. Like that's, or like any kind of blanket statement with creative. It depends on the advertiser and the actual content itself. So
Definitely,
that's really good. Nice. So what's something that people you think misunderstand a lot about creative or UGC or script writing in general?
Yeah, I would think that exactly the last thing that we talked about, like direct response script writing. I mean, it's that's always a moneymaker for every brand. Like even with emails, even with landing pages, like copywriting is number one. Even when we were like in radio ads or TV ads, like the scripts were what happens. You know, it's like, and it's the same here. It's just different platform. It's different creative style. But I mean, you can have like a video that it's like a voiceover, nice visuals, and if it's a very well scripted, it's gonna work, right? And but one thing is that why, in my opinion, UGC works so well is because most of the time, I mean, not most of the time, but it should be most of the time, it's not like, it doesn't look like an ad. And you basically need to build a story about certain situation or certain problem or whatever, and then you slowly or you kind of sneak in that direct response element. And sometimes when we try that, it's usually like the first 3 to 5 seconds. It's very native style. Like for example, right now I'm working on one brand that it's for dog supplements, and I actually bought a 360 camera that it's for me is that I bought it just for hooks because it has such a unique visual. And you know, and now when we recorded, we actually recorded a dog walking around or running around, and that camera is recording it. So the visual is very interesting, but it looks like that someone posted it on social. Like it doesn't have like any animation, nothing. That's why like text animation, in my opinion, doesn't work. You just need to put like those blocks of text that are very native. Of course, text in there is copywriting, is direct response copywriting, but visually it looks so native that it kind of tricks people that it's not an ad.
Wow, that's a really like interesting angle. That's super interesting. Nice.
Yeah, that's really cool. And the whole part about not looking like an ad, that's an interesting part. Do you find that, especially with TikTok nowadays, it's more of an entertainment platform like YouTube than a social media? So in your hooks, do you find that starting as if it's an entertainment piece or like budget hack number 3, and like you start with like a TikTok hook, do you find that's more effective these days?
Well, I still prefer one hook that really works for TikTok is curiosity hook. Like you do something visually and the angle, the copy is, let's say, she's afraid, will she do it? And you are curious, like, do what? And you are watching, you know? And like that hook was like 70% stops for ratio on TikTok.
Nice.
It was incredible. And So curiosity hook is very important. Educational hook, it's very important. Like if you can tell, like for example, when I mentioned that shampoo, if you can educate people that you are actually putting on your hair the same shampoo that guys are putting on their car, you will start thinking, you know? And so sometimes hooks can be very visual, just some random stuff like throw your product in the water and you have a splash and that's it. It makes no sense, but sometimes that's enough, you know? So yeah, definitely entertainment, education, and curiosity are like those top 3 angles. Of course, and benefit driven and problem focused. Those are like, let's say five angles.
What's the like highest impact variable when you test a creative? Is it the hook, or is it the actual content itself, like the formats, what would you say is the highest impact in your opinion?
I mean, it's very hard to say because like in one brand, we actually have like very good hooks. Like hooks are 40%, 50% most of the time. But the best hook for them is actually around 30%, which is the actual product in use and the main feature and benefit in 2 seconds. So you know, so from the content perspective, it's a very benefit driven hook. But from the numerical perspective, like percentage is like very low. Yeah. And I mean, 30% is solid, but it's low for this account. So and to find the biggest variable, I think that both are very important. So what I do in creative analysis, I analyze of course, hooks, and I also analyze script structure. So that means what happens after the hook. Is it usually product introduction, but how is it presented? Is it presented just someone showing the product, or is it like a 3-second unboxing? Or you have like right now I'm seeing a lot of very good hooks, not hooks, like product introduction when you actually show the packaging and then you shake the packaging, and like in the middle of the shaking, it's a transition when you have the product already in your hands. So it's kind of an unboxing, but it's quick cut style. And unboxing is its hook by itself, right? People are curious what's in there. So you have hook after the hook. But to explain how I analyze script structure is basically, I put like a bullet points how the flow goes. Like let's say you have a hook, product introduction, benefit 1, depositioning, benefit 2, social proof, call to action. Yeah. Then the next one can be some different sequence or different elements. You have like, I don't know what you can say. You have depositioning that can be explaining depositioning or educating or comparison. So you have various styles how you can deposition the competitor. And you can also deposition the competitor, direct competitor, or just other alternative that it's not really direct. So like for some treatments, you can have direct competitor, or you can have some home remedy that it's like, let's say you have that, you know, that a massage steel like ball when you massage your muscles when they are sore, but you can actually use ice cubes at home, but those are messy and it's not convenient. So it's kind of, it's not direct competitor, but it's like market competitor. So it's like you can go so deep in creatives, like every single segment can have like a sub-segments. So yeah.
So what do your column setup look like when you're analyzing creative now? Is it like, you know, you have your attention rate, then it's like 20%, 50%, 75% of the video, and then you like analyze where people are dropping off? Like how like what's your
I don't go that deep. Like I'm more like, I look at hook ratio, I look average watch time, which is very correlated to hook ratio and the length of the video. So it's not always the best indicator, but usually is hook ratio, 1-day click ROAS, or CPA. It really depends what they are looking for, and CTR. Those are like my main metrics. And then if I see like very good hook ratio, and then on the other hand, I have like very low CTR, I can see, okay, the hook was very good, but it was kind of a clickbaity hook.
Yeah.
So that means it's maybe not the best. So I compare all those elements. Like if I give you one example, I had 2 ads that are both of them were profitable and working really well. One of them was Mashup that had like hook ratio was very similar to both of them. One of them had very good ROAS, and CTR was around 1%, I think. The other one has a little bit lower ROAS, and CTR was 1.3%. And then I was analyzing why this one is so much better engaging, but the performance is worse, and why is the other one around. And I noticed that the one that had a very good CTR was actually a mashup, a lot of reactions, very dynamic, very fun. So it was engaging, entertaining, it was fun, but it didn't have so many direct response elements. The other one had some comparison element and also objection handling. That was the only difference. So what I did in the next round, I made mashups that had those 2 elements in it. And all of a sudden it was performing so much better. So
Nice.
you see how you can analyze creatives, not just from the angle perspective or hook perspective, but also from the script structure perspective.
Nice. That's a really good example. I appreciate you explaining that. And yeah, that'd be great for anyone just like trying to get into more video writing and script writing with listeners at home. Yeah, that's really, really good stuff. So that being said, like maybe we go through like how your daily workflow looks when, or just like your workflow in general. What is it like when you have to start writing a script? What do you start to think about? What kind of research you do, that kind of stuff. You had a couple of Twitter threads on it, but for the people who haven't followed you on Twitter, how would you explain that?
Well, usually, I mean, it really depends what kind of day is in front of me, but let's say if I focus on script writing, it's the first thing that I do in the morning when I come into office is I make one script. I don't read emails. I don't do anything, like fresh mind, just go into scripts. Now, usually I already prepare my creative strategy for that month. So I already know, okay, today I have a script for this brand. It's about ingredients. Let's talk about education. Let's talk about various things, whatever. And then I have a Google Sheet, and Google Sheet has 3 columns. And one column is text, or actually it's a voiceover or someone talking to the camera. It's a text animation and a visual. Because sometimes text animation is not full subtitles, what the voiceover is saying. Sometimes it's just like a condensed version of what they are saying, because people don't read, they scan. So you need to make easy for them. Then I put like bullet points, what I want in there. So let's assume I have the voiceover, or if I make mashups, I put together like 5 UGCs. I put everything in text, and then I pick like the best sentences, and I put those sentences in like a sequence that makes sense, and then I support that text with visuals. So then I have voiceover, visuals, and then in the end I make the middle column, which is text animation.
Nice. That's really cool. And I can see how, like, when you say the copywriting, the script writing is the most important, I can see how it's reflected in the actual process. That's very good. A lot of times, like the actual workflow people do, they know what their priorities are in terms of highest impact on the actual results, but their processes are, oh, let me spend 4 hours on emails and calls and stuff, and then maybe I'll spend some time on like the copy and the emotions and that kind of stuff. So it's really cool that you prioritize that. That's kind of a good lesson for people listening who maybe they're very junior and they have a lot of paralysis by analysis, and they wake up and they have an agency job and they're bombarded with emails. Knocking out the most highest impact thing first is a great strategy. And Anze is a very senior veteran media buyer and performance marketer. So you can learn a lot from that skill alone. That's really, really cool.
That was actually one of my biggest improvement in this year. Like, start with the hardest task in the morning. Or in script writing is creativity. Your mind is relaxed, is fresh. You don't see any bad emails coming in yet because you haven't opened it. So you just go to work, because like one email can really ruin your day sometimes. That's like one or two scripts like before everything else.
I got a question, right? So I think one of the biggest problems with a lot of agencies at the moment is like brands that can't, afford to do the like content and the production of the side of it. They might have like product images and stuff like that, like really, really limited in terms of content. Like, how much would you recommend, or how much do you usually see a brand allocate to, getting just new content and focusing on new content instead of like direct ROI from Facebook's with their current content that's just not working? Like, is it 10% of revenue? Is it 10% of ad spend? Like, what do you usually recommend to someone?
I mean, it's so hard to say because you don't know on which level they are.
Yeah.
Because I mean, right now I'm working with some brands that are spending like really a lot, like 50K a day and that kind of stuff, and they are working with several creative agencies. They have in-house creative team. They hire us as freelancers like for additional brain, and they have like a different type of creatives. And it's very hard to say, but when you are, let's say, in the beginning, the first thing that you need to do is content. Like, if you are like very low on budget, then you need to do it on your own, which is actually good because you learn so much about content. And then when you hire professionals, you know how to monitor them if they are actually doing a good job, because you already learned. It's the same with media buying and stuff. Those guys who actually did some media buying, they tried it a little bit. Those guys are the best clients because they know how it works. They know the communication. But I know that some of the guys are just brand owners. It's hard for them. So they need to get people that they can trust. But yeah, content is so important. Like, it's very hard to say how much you can spend on content, because imagine that you spend 5K, 10K on content, and you find in there a couple of winners. That content will give you so much back. Like, you can go to 100K so quickly, and that investment was very, very little compared to what you got back. But if you have, like, if you hire someone and they don't do a good job, at least you know what it doesn't work. Like, we already tried that, it doesn't work. Or maybe you can hire some consultant that they look at your creatives and they say, look, yeah, you tried UGC, but it's not the issue that UGC doesn't work. It's just UGC is bad,
Yeah. And that's something very important. It's like, and I've seen this too, when you see a brand that, especially early on, whether it's a client or a brand you work at or whatever, they will try something in the past, like very early on. The first test of it will fail, whether it's a whole platform or a creative style or an entire marketing angle, whatever. And they'll say, okay, this isn't for us. Let's never try it again. And, I've seen that with brands that were a few years old and they tried something, like Facebook ads, for example. They tried Facebook ads in 2019 and it didn't work because they just didn't know what they were doing. And then in 2022, they're like, oh, we still don't think Facebook ads works. That's not a channel that works. For when you see what they tried, and it was, it was just like an image with like a stock image with some text on it with the product name. It's like not even trying. So that's a very extreme example, but that's a mindset for the listeners where if you're in an agency or you have a client who is against trying something because they did it once and it failed, they have to know like the first failure is fine. You're only as good as your analysis and your testing process. So if you have a testing process where you just give up on the first try, that's bad. But like you said, with the analysis, you do a lot of analysis. If the analysis is good, you learn from it, you stop doing what you think didn't work and you do more of what you think was good. To put it very simply, that's very important. It's important to budget for long-term testing. So that's just something I would tell people listening in general.
Yep.
All right, cool. So I have a couple other topics here. So you talked a lot about that. Let's talk about, so what platforms are you on? You're just doing Facebook ads, or do you do TikTok, YouTube, Snapchat, all that?
So I'm doing everything. Like YouTube, not so much, but more and more. So it's still very similar approach, just a little bit different. But yeah, mostly Facebook, TikTok, Instagram. That's most of it.
All right, nice. Yeah, that's pretty cool. So like we talked about with TikTok, something I find when I did a lot of creative testing between TikTok and Facebook is the things that worked well on TikTok or the TikTok style content does just as well on Facebook and Instagram. Are you finding that too?
Yeah, the same. Like, and then, I mean, a couple of creatives that were a little bit more polished for Facebook also worked on TikTok, but not a lot. Like, there's not many those situations. But yeah, exactly the same.
Yeah, and that's something where I feel like all social media platforms are adopting the TikTok style. When YouTube has shorts, Facebook has reels and all this stuff, everyone's trying to copy TikTok.
Yeah.
And the content style is the same. So it's safe to assume or think that this TikTok style content is the future of social media content in general. Very UGC, iPhone native looking for TikTok style content. That would work well on Facebook, Instagram, and probably YouTube as well. So that's something I would tell advertisers.
Yeah, but it still comes back to storytelling. Like what we see on TikTok is like great stories, like that spark curiosity in the beginning, and then transition to a product or whatever. So it's I would say storytelling with this direct response elements.
Yeah, that's really, really good. And actually, what you mentioned, this kind of stuff, the storytelling worked in TV ads and radio. There's like an ad, Claude Hopkins, who the father of direct response advertising for Van Camp's Milk. It's like over 100 years old. And they're using like copywriting processes, like you said, the depositioning, the benefits versus the hooks and the features. When you look at that Van Camp's Milk sales letter from over 100 years ago, they have all these copywriting elements that a lot of your favorite gurus are claiming to have invented in 2022. So I think it's very cool. It just goes to, if you're an advertiser, like what you should be focusing on. If you look at very pure direct response principles and you look up the history of direct response advertising and the famous ads from Claude Hopkins and David Ogilvy and Eugene Schwartz, you can learn a lot more than if you just kind of look at marketing Twitter. And that's something that I imagine impacts ad creative a lot. And that's actually something Anze was one of the first people I heard of talk about that. I was like, oh, what are some good courses? Who are some good gurus to follow? And he's like, breakthrough advertising, common sense and like actual testing. So very, very exciting stuff for the listeners at home to take away. Another topic actually I want to talk about, first of all, what's up, Andrew Soria? Andrew is back on.
Gentlemen, good to see you. Anze,
Hey, Andrew.
been a while.
Yeah.
Sorry, guys. Had a graduation.
Look at this reunion. Jesus.
Yo.
The first week of Voy all over again.
Yeah. It's really, really good stuff. So, Andrew, I think I linked to you the document, just the stuff, some of the talking points today. We talked about, some of the processes Anze does, the workflow, how direct response and storytelling is the core of everything. Do you have any specific talking points maybe for Anze at this time, or kind of chime in as the conversation goes on?
Let's see. Definitely don't want to repeat anything like Anze says. For those that are listening, I feel like most of us have probably learned a lot from Anze when we first started our career, especially me. So I definitely don't want to repeat anything that he's already said already. But I think like maybe just a word of advice for like just getting your creative process in general. I think something that I've learned working at this newer company with just a ton more people, maybe like 50 people in one account, right? It's like a little bit step out of where my roots are. I think, if I had a piece of advice, it'd be like just cross-channel collaboration. Really just, once your accounts get bigger, I feel like there's other teams. For example, there's conversion teams, and then there's content teams. Like there's teams that are so specific to a certain thing. Whereas I feel like, at least I started, we were doing a little bit of everything. So, if you do have that ability to like talk to conversion team to talk about like what creative from the website perspective is really converting the most, especially because there's 20 people versus, let's say, you and another creative. Really just trying to pull insights from other departments, because I feel like us as creatives, I feel like our job is to try to get every business problem and try to have our own creative solution to it. I know if I can reference one company real quick, I've been like a big fan of Oatly. Oatly is the milk company, and the way their company set up is like their creatives are literally at the center of the company, and they talk to sales, and they talk to conversion teams, they talk to like literally every department possible. Whereas usually creatives, we get a brief and then we kind of convert this into like this massive campaign. So, definitely DR principles. Anze is the second father of it. And then really just trying to piece that all together is really like, really our jobs as, not as creative as well, but just everybody.
Just going on what Andrew said, Anze, like, what is your, like, obviously we know you went from like media buyer to creative, I'd say, like, and like being very analytical to being more creative. Like, what would you recommend to someone starting out in marketing in general? Would you recommend them go creative first, or get that media buying background and then go creative? Like, what would you recommend?
If they are starting from scratch, I would suggest that they would go into creative route, just because the platforms change, but the creative doesn't. Like I said, we had radio, newspaper, TV, now we have internet. So the platforms change, but it's always, you had to be creative, and you always had to learn how to solve people's problems, or how your product solves people's problems. So if that's like basically being a marketer, right? And then to learn media buying right now, like in the last year, it's much harder than before, in my opinion, because now you need to have all those Nordbeam platforms, Triplewire, and so on. And you need to learn how to now you need 3 platforms to actually see what's going on. It takes so much time. And of course, you need to have everything on point to even look at the correct data. So it's pretty hard. But if you don't know how to work on creatives, it's gonna be impossible, because if you don't have good creators, you can look at every platform possible and you're not gonna win. And right now I'm working like I'm basically almost completely removed from my media buying, so I don't have any clients yet anymore on the media buying side.
Do you
So
miss it?
no, not at all. Not at all. But I still like I look at the ad account because I look at the creative performance. But now I work with a couple of very good media buyers who are very good marketers. So they, let's say, for example, I had a discussion with one media buyer last week, and he told me, look, this creative is working really well. Can you make some iterations? And I looked at it, I got the ideas, and I told him, okay, I have some ideas. Can you share your ideas? And he gave me like a couple of bullet points. That's it. Like we were discussing through email. It doesn't need to take like a half an hour meeting. He just throw a couple of bullet points, and like 4 of those bullet points were the same as mine. And then I had a couple of additional stuff, and he had one thing that I didn't came up with. So it's basically then if a media buyer is good on the creative side, it helps me too. And then like it's kind of a brainstorming, but it really helps.
Yeah,
Nice.
100%. I think, especially in this market, I think having both is like an asset. If you can have media buying skills and creative, it's like an absolute, like then you're starting to become a well-rounded marketer, in my opinion. I think, you know, for especially for display, you know, having that media buying skills and then creative as well, it's just an absolute bonus in this marketplace. Usually people are like, at a stretch, people have one, but if you have 2, which we kind of learn off just because there's such a, we had to wear multiple hats at, you know, the previous agencies that so it worked out. So, you know, it was really, really interesting to have that experience and have more than one skill set, which I think is really good for sure.
Yeah, definitely. Because I mean, it's when a media buyer shows some creative ideas, it's usually very like high level. They don't go deep into every single second. Then it's the creative part to go into pacing and every single second, and what kind of transitions you will have, what kind of visuals are going to support that story, and so on and so on. Otherwise, if you have to do everything, it's very time consuming.
How do you usually look for, like, you know, like you when you're testing? So when we test, we look at, like, you know, conversion volume on the account, how many purchases they get in a day, but then how do you translate that to how much content you're creating for the brand? Like, if, for example, that person that's, you know, spending 50K a day, they're going to be completely different in terms of content. They could have content almost every other day, right? That you're creating. Like, how do you find the balance between creating enough content and then also testing enough on the platform and getting the data back really quickly?
Yeah, I mean, it's not my job anymore to say how much content we need. I basically, when I work with clients, we agree to certain packages, and then I just deliver I don't know, 3 videos per week, 6 videos per week. I don't know, it really depends what are their needs. And basically, and then if we see that it's working well, usually we are scaling. They just want a more volume, and then they are expanding to TikTok and so on. So it's really hard to say, but you just need to be careful not to over-test the ad account or under-test the ad account. Because if you are under-testing, then you are just playing it safe, but that safe can be safe just for 1 month. And then all of a sudden, something's not working, and you start testing, and it probably won't work immediately. But some guys are over-testing, then you see like 50% of the budget goes into testing. It can go in the beginning of the testing phase because you need to get some results, right? But once you find that winning creatives, you need to play around between iterations of that winners and also new concepts that spend like 10 or 15% of the actual budget.
Yeah. So when you iterate on a creative, what's your process? Is it just the breakdown of the AIDA metrics and then finding like if something has a low CTR, you switch it out with another creative that has a high CTR? Like what is that? Is it like Lego blocks where you just find the right ones that fit?
Yeah, it's everything basically. So the way that I look is, if I wanna iterate, is like the first step is look at the winners and see what's the content in them, what's the hook ratio for those winners. So let's say you have a winner and the hook ratio is not the best, but it's still performing. The first thing that you're gonna do, you're gonna try to improve the hook. Then you can maybe shorten the video and remove some of the, let's say, unnecessary parts. Then third one can be the same storyboard, different visuals. Then it can be after the hook, you can add different elements. So again, drag and drop style, you can play around a lot. But then you look at the non-performance, and the first thing you do, you look at the hooks. Because maybe you have a non-performer and the hook is below 20%, and it's like, okay, this creative didn't even have a fair chance. Like, let's make new hooks. Let's try to get to 30, 40%, and then we see if it's a good video or angle. But sometimes, sometimes the hook is bad because the angle is bad, because hook is usually an angle. So it really depends. I don't have like a structure. This is step number one, step number two. But those are like the first steps that I mentioned. But there's, of course, it's so much more to go deeper into that.
Nice. And in the Foxwell group, shout out to the Foxwell Founders Club, sponsored the podcast. I asked, what is everyone's daily copywriting practices or something, and you responded, you write a script every day, which you went over. Another thing you mentioned though is you look at ads every day. It's something I know a lot of people like to do with ad libraries. I keep a bookmark of a few different ad libraries. Dr. Squatch, Shirley, shout out, old podcast episode. What is something that you look for or you're paying attention to when you're looking at ads in your feed, in an ad library, in a swipe file? What are you paying attention to?
Yeah, let me see. I look at what kind of creative style they have. I looked also like what kind of lengths they are playing, because sometimes they are like very similar. So you kind of see what's the golden rule, because like some of the brands, they need a little bit of education, so they go a little bit longer for. Some of the brands are very simple, like 15 seconds is enough. So then you can see, okay, if it's a simple, I don't need longer videos. So that's one thing. Then of course I look at the hooks. What's the hook headline and what's the hook visual? That's always important. I look at the design of the text, which is lately very native, non-animated stuff, because it just doesn't look like an ad. And then I look at the first sentence that the creator is gonna say. Sometimes it's the hook itself. Sometimes it's after the hook. That's very important. I noticed that right now a lot of brands are doing hook, product, and call to action immediately. Then they start discussing about it, which is kind of interesting, because like the hook is actual benefit and call to action, like you should gotta try this, and then they start talking about why. That's another one. Then I look what kind of visuals are after the hook, what kind of script structure they have, and which psychological trigger they want to push. So like for say, do they want to spark like sexual companionship or freedom from pain or whatever?
That's Force 8 you're referring to?
Yeah, exactly.
That's good.
So yeah, those are the stuff. Like script structure is very important to me too. When I was at the agency, we had like trainings every week, and actually I give them instructions like, you look at the ad library of this brand, I'm gonna look at this brand, I'm gonna look at this brand. make notes. I have like a template of Google Sheet, and they were like analyzing the same thing that I was talking right now. And basically then we had a call, 1 hour call, and everyone had to present to other guys what they saw. And it basically was a shortcut for everyone, because like we were like a team of 5. So I looked at them on my own, and then I listened for 1 hour the other guys, and I didn't have to do the analysis by myself of those brands, because they did it for me. And the way opposite. So now all of a sudden we analyzed like 5 brands per week. And like that was like for 4 months we were doing that. And then you get like a clear idea what's going on, like what's the script structure, what of creative styles. So yeah, that's one thing that everyone should do basically on like at least once a week.
Yeah, and that's something Andrew mentioned, and I want to shout out what a smart topic that is, like the cross-team collaboration, even if it's within the same team. I think we mentioned on the podcast, and when we work together, having people on the team who are the target customer. For example, if it's a makeup brand, you know, I'm not their target customer because I already have a perfect face, but you know, some of, you know, maybe the project manager is a female and she wears a lot of makeup. Shout out Agnes. She would, you know, include people, a lot of people on the team who use different, who are the target customer or have different backgrounds or something. That's a really important point. And then, yeah, that's something that if you're in an agency right now, I love the point about just getting all the different perspectives. It makes the analysis better. People will just see things you'll miss. You're always thinking in your own like algorithm, and other people have different thinking processes, and they'll just catch things you missed, even no matter how junior or like I'll give you like Agnes, for example, was a project manager. She wasn't a marketer, but she would have ideas that were extremely profitable for the client because she's the target customer, or she is from France and it was a product that was French or something. Like that was an example. Like you don't know what you don't know. So very important point there. So another question, I saw something you mentioned on Twitter a few times, and I see it a lot. A lot of people just starting out with creatives, they don't know what to do. If you say, oh, take a video with your iPhone, they don't know how to start. So I saw something, you see like people using Post-it notes and writing the hook on that, or people taking a video in their house or something. What are like 3 to 5 video or hook styles you can do right now sitting in a room with an iPhone?
Demonstrate the problem. Then show some spicy detail about the product, like very close range camera angle, your point of view style, or you're walking towards the product that's on the table and then you unbox it. Like that's very simple one. What else? Let me see. I have some notes.
I saw the Post-it note one on Twitter. So
yeah.
I thought that was what sparked that question actually.
And then with these Post-it notes, like you can play around, then you can level up. So it can be, let's say you have let's say this pouch, you see?
Yeah.
So and in here you can put a Post-it note. So you can have like this can be a hook. Like you open it and you just take it out.
Interesting.
So it's a little bit different. Or so you don't make just that Post-it note, but you also be creative with that. Or you can one was like we had a journal, like I don't care. Anyway, so it was a journal, and I opened the journal, and in there was a Post-it note. But then I blew so the Post-it note fly away, and then I actually reversed that clip.
Oh, wow.
So the Post-it note flight in the journal, and then I closed it up. So you just try to be a bit creative, or one can be, let me see, I have a couple of good ones. joints.
And it doesn't have to make sense, which I think is the most important point. Like, as long as it's something, any kind of movement showing the clip in a weird way.
Yeah, and weird camera angle. Like, if you can, like, one of the hooks that I'm working right now is for this dog brand. It was like how the dog sees you, you know? So it was camera angle from like very low on the ground. And like the content creator was like, come on, good boy, go get a ball. You know, she was yelling at the camera. And like we were now put the filter on that she's like, don't, like the dog doesn't understand. And then we will transition that I can't run, my dog, my joints are hurting, and then transition to dog supplements for joints. You know,
Nice.
so but the hook is so weird that like I'm really interested in what is going to be the hook ratio for that. But that's the point. Try to find first what's the problem, dog pain, like joint pain, and how I'm gonna now make a story about this in 3 seconds. Because and how you get inspiration basically everywhere. Like I got this inspiration. My wife was watching the TikTok and she saw that, and she's also very creative, probably more than I am. But I have like a lot of structures in place, so I get more ideas because of it. But like if you would ask her, she would have like a couple of very good creative ideas that I wouldn't think of anything. That's why we work together so well. So, and she actually sent me that clip, and I just made a screenshot, send it to my Slack, made a reminder for the next day, and I put it in my folder of screenshots. And then a couple of weeks later, I use it. So pretty simple.
Nice.
Right.
And then when you're thinking of ideas, do you just look up the niche's name in TikTok and see their top performing videos?
Not really. I mean, I sometimes I just scroll past on TikTok and just see some weird stuff, and then I see, okay, this can be useful for this brand, or this is just interesting to me. Let me make a screenshot, and then I'm gonna think about all of my brands that I'm working on, and if I can implement there or not. So, but yeah, sometimes, of course, I go into ads library on TikTok. There's also a website like PPS, I think, and they have there you can search for TikTok ads, I think. I looked at it a little bit. I still don't think it's that good, because I looked at, like, you search by the brand and there's like 4 ads live, and I know they're not using just 4 ads, because they are spending like 15K a day. So you know that's like very little. But yeah, I think also that Facebook ads library is not very accurate too. Like sometimes I know how many ads we are running, and Facebook ads library shows like 10 of them, which is not
interesting
at all.
Well, I got a question on that. Like, do you really care about and this is pretty generic, like, do you really care about like industry competitors and like going into competitive markets? Like, well, you know, because what we see is a lot of brands just getting into niches where, you know, it's just so saturated, like skincare and stuff like that, and it's like really hard to find, you know, a different benefit or a different product use case for that
selling point.
Yeah, so, you know, a USP for that. Do you really care about that? And if, you know, if not, then like what's your sort of strategy to make these guys almost look like a first in their field, or just a differentiated product than something that they can go and get at like a grocery store or a mall or anything like that?
Yeah, I mean, that's why I always look ads from all over the place, not just from that competitor, because they are, like you said, mostly they are very similar. So you can find an inspiration for skincare in completely different niche, and or you can find like inspiration for just certain segments of the video. But yeah, regarding angles, it's Reddit. Like Reddit is a gold mine. You can go there and like I had like a brand that were selling like, I think that cream that you put on your shoulders or lower back, and it has magnesium, so it's very good for if you have insomnia, and it's perfect for pregnant ladies. And I was like typing Reddit insomnia pregnant ladies, and then I saw a comment. I felt like a zombie every day. I thought I had a hangover all the time. So
Wow.
those quotes gave me a hook idea.
Yeah.
And then I just support those ideas with visuals, and that's it. So sometimes it's very easy, but sometimes it's like it takes a while. It takes a lot of work and research so you can find it.
Yeah, I think Reddit's really good because like it's when I use it for creative inspiration, it's almost like people are going for their problems to just anonymous other people. They're like really trying to seek advice on this one problem that they have, which I think is really, really interesting. And like, Reddit, Quora, any of that, I think is some of the headlines that you find there, or some of even the replies. If you look at some of the replies to that one big comment, it's like, they have, I experienced this and this is how I felt. It's such an interesting place to go and get inspiration from. I like that you mentioned that.
Yeah.
Really cool. Anze, this is awesome. A lot of really good actionable information, and the keyword actionable. Everything we try to do is something that listeners can implement into their daily workflow.
Mm-hmm.
And you've given our listeners an absolute gold mine for that. So we really appreciate your time just talking to us today.
Cool. I would love to.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Where can people find you? You have a website. You have Twitter. What's your Twitter handle?
Let me see. I don't know.
I know it's Anze something, and I know it's not Anze Markovic.
Where do you talk?
Yeah.
Where do you talk the most, Anze? Twitter?
Yeah, it's just Twitter. Like I don't have anything else. Like Twitter and referrals are like my source of clients right now. So, and mostly referrals. So that's actually a very good sign to me too. But just on Twitter, like Anze DITN.
Anze DN. If you just type in Anze Performance Creative in Twitter, like he'll come up. Or if you follow me on Twitter, not to just plug myself, it's just Eric_Philippou. Follow me, then search my followers and type in Anze, ANZE. That's how you will find Anze too. So also follow us.
Follow the whole squad.
All right, cool. All right, well, Anze, it's been an absolute pleasure. We look forward to publishing the episode. We think people are going to absolutely love it. This is absolutely great. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Great. Thank you, guys.
Good seeing you, Anze.
Thanks.
Thank you so much, Anze.